Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. I'm your host, Carly, and I'll be your guide on this journey from consciousness to cluelessness and back around again. Thanks for joining me for another Sunday solo episode. Whether it's Sunday night and you're gearing up for your week, Monday morning and you're on your way to work, or whatever day this podcast has found you, I'm really glad you're here. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? By now, you all know that therapy is an important part of my own self-care. It has truly been a game changer in every aspect of my life, including achieving goals. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy platform worldwide. They are changing the way people get help with facing life's challenges by providing convenient, discreet, and affordable access to a licensed therapist. BetterHelp makes professional therapy available anytime, anywhere, through a computer, tablet, or smartphone. You can start communicating within 48 hours. It's not a crisis line, it's not self-help. It is professional therapy done securely online. And I have a special offer for Consciously Clueless listeners. Visit BetterHelp.com/Carly and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. By using this code, you get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/CARLY. Take care of yourself today. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. All right, I want to talk about something that I think some people don't want to hear. I don't think we like talking about this sometimes, specifically in the wellness space or the self-help space or all of the things I like talking about. Let's talk about toxic positivity. Now, if you haven't heard of this before and you're instantly confused, let me help you out. Now, I need to make a few preliminary statements here. I need to preface this with a few things. I am all about, and I think this goes without saying, but I am all about being positive. I am all about feeling your way to the next good thing. I am all about making sure that you can try to be creating these good habits and these good feelings and these good vibes so you can feel better and better and manifest the things that you want. Yes, I'm here for all of that. However, to do that work doesn't mean that you're positive all the time. To manifest doesn't mean you're positive all the time. To live a healthy life doesn't mean that you're positive all the time. It just doesn't. What happens with toxic positivity is there's this idea that we should always be grateful, that we should always be looking on the bright side, that we should always be only living in positive vibes. And like I just said, a lot of the times those things are helpful. But to actually move forward and to actually get through stuff, you have to look at the shadow side. You have to deal with why things are coming up. You have to process. You have to go through the sludge. You have to sometimes understand why the bad vibes are coming up so you can get back to the positive vibes in a more sustainable way. So what is toxic positivity? It is basically, it should be its own mood, inspiration, vibe, board. I don't know. I'm trying to say a bunch of words that feel relevant, but I'm probably sounding like a millennial anyway. They are just all over the wellness space. Instagram is full of toxic positivity. I have probably performed toxic positivity in my own life and to others, thinking I was doing a good thing, just like you probably have. And you know what? Might in the future as we learn kind of what's useful and what's not for people. But here's some signs of toxic positivity. Maybe this will help. I'll share this article that I'm using that I think so beautifully kind of sums this up. Reciting positive quotes about hard situations, like just stay positive. Ignoring your problems. Hiding painful emotions. I really want to come back to that one. dismissing others' difficult feelings, experiencing guilt for being sad or angry. Oof, oof, oof. How many of those could you raise your hand for because you related? Specifically, the kind of cycle I've been in a few times when people have tried to kind of throw toxic positivity my way when I'm upset because I've been seen as sensitive and I get really emotional about things. So there's this idea of like, it'll be fine, you'll be fine. And then you start to either hide those painful emotions or you feel sad or upset that you have them because you feel like they're bad because you've been dismissed. And then I would start ignoring things. And then the cycle continues. So even though sometimes saying like, hey, just stay positive might feel like you're doing a good thing, you need to make sure that's where they're at. Maybe the person you're talking to is still in the space of, hey, that was really, really hard. Do you want to talk about how that's affected you? Because you can't just look on the bright side of life in every aspect. And in many ways, it's a really privileged statement sometimes to just stay positive or just look on the bright side. Because if you have always been able to do that with success, you've got some stuff going for you, and that's great, and I love that for you. I love that journey for you, but that's not everyone's experience. It's like when you experience loss, and someone says, everything happens for a reason. That might not be that comforting to someone who just lost their family member. How do you explain that? Or what about someone who's depressed? I've talked about this in the past series about depression. If you tell someone happiness is a choice, just choose to be happy, when they are struggling and depressed, and then you make them feel bad because they can't choose to be happy. They don't feel like they're choosing to be sad, they just are. So even though sometimes we might have good intentions, it causes guilt. It's shaming. And it avoids authentic human emotion. I think this is so crucial. I think people often deploy toxic positivity because it is easier to avoid getting engaged in these emotions. You get to kind of sidestep that. We then start to repeat that again and again and again, maybe with ourselves or with others, to have this response of when feelings of frustration or doubt or whatever it is, anything that's not positive comes up, we feel bad. And then we just start to not share. So it actually prevents growth to pretend everything's fine and to not deal with, why am I being triggered by this? Why am I upset by this? Why is this coming up? So I can clear it and not have to deal with it again and not let it get in the way of actually feeling positive, of holistically feeling positive and having good vibes, of making change that sticks and that matters and that is not just surface level. It is possible to be optimistic when you are going through hard things, but that is just one of the things you are probably experiencing. It is a pervasive thing, I think, when I started thinking about this, for women to deploy to each other or specifically to ourselves because of society. I think men do this as well, though. And then the more I think about it, I think it's just a human condition. Everybody, no matter how they identify, I think, is dealing with this culture that tells us to be positive when we look around and there are real problems to solve. You can't tell someone who's living in poverty that everything happens for a reason, or that was just assaulted that everything happens for a reason. You can help them process through and maybe get to a place where they feel that they have learned something from whatever that experience is, but that's for them to do, not for you to decide. You can manage your negative emotions. You can manage them. You can make sure that you are paying attention to them and processing through them, but that doesn't mean you deny them and pretend they aren't there. It's okay to feel more than one thing. If you are trying to be a support person, focus on listening to others and showing support. Let them know that what they are telling you is normal and that you want to listen. Or what I really like, and I've tried to think of more lately, is asking someone, Do you just want a listening ear right now, or do you want advice? Then they get to choose. Are they asking you just to hear them complain about their really shitty situation? Or are they looking for feedback? And then just ask, and you can avoid potentially giving all these toxic platitudes that don't help at all. So, yeah, I am a transformation coach who is all about self-love and being positive and manifesting your dream life. And also the shadow side, also dealing with your emotions, also therapy, also all of that stuff too. Toxic positivity is so gross and not helpful. It's just not helpful. And we do it sometimes because we've been conditioned to, or because it's easier, or whatever it is. So I'm not here to shame you if you have, or if you've experienced toxic positivity. But maybe it's something to think about. Maybe it's something to think about how you do that for yourself. Do you kind of shame yourself in that way, or others? Maybe you hadn't thought about it like this. Talk about it with someone in your life. I am always curious to hear from you if this feels helpful or if it's spurred something in your brain. Of course, let me know. But I want you to start looking out and listening for the people and the accounts you follow or the things you watch, whatever it is, surrounding yourself not with toxic positivity, not with nothing but good vibes only, but with true vibes and honest vibes. That's what helps move us forward. Thanks for listening to another episode of Consciously Clueless. If you enjoyed this podcast, hit subscribe wherever you're listening. If you want to help me get this into the ears of more listeners, send it to a friend, text it to a family member, share on social media. Whatever you can do really helps me out. And if you haven't yet, head over to patreon.com/consciouslycarly. You can join and get access to yoga videos, vegan recipes, tips for healthy living, behind the scenes content from the podcast, and so much more. And finally, let's work together. If you want to work together in making your life better, head over to consciouslycarly.com, fill out a form, and let's chat.